Good morning. It's very good to see you again. Thanks for coming.
No, I'm more than honored. Thank you. I was here 8 years ago, but today but
Yeah.
you're doing video conference.
Thank you very much.
No, thank you for taking time to
You know, I have many common friends visiting there and seeing, but I never had the chance to visit. But even my visit was very, very short. But you know, you can see how nice and beautiful the country is.
Thank you, sir. And I appreciate your support for the mosque in,
Yes.
in Ghana.
أشكر سعادتنا رئيس وزراء النيبال على بيانه. والآن أدعو فخامة السيدة ناتاشا بيرك مسار رئيسة جمهورية سلوفينيا إلى إلقاء خطاب خاص عن التصدي للتحديات وتسخير الإمكانات من خلال الشراكات من أجل التنمية المستدامة لأقل البلدان نمواً. فلتتفضل.
General, Madam High Representative and Secretary General of the 5th UN Conference on LDCs, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. Back in 1971, when the category of least developed countries was introduced by the UN on the proposal of UNCTAD, I was a 3-year-old toddler living in former Yugoslavia, famed for being a steadfast supporter of developing countries and one of the non-aligned founding members. Now, as a first-time politician, I am wondering, what has changed since the early 70s? It is true that the introduction of the LDC category mobilized developed countries to channel development cooperation and partnership to the key sectors in LDCs for achieving economic and social development, as well as improving human welfare. In this regard, I would like to commend the United Nations for its role in recognizing the particular needs and challenges of the poorest and most vulnerable countries in the world. But facts invite us to seriously reflect on where do we go from here. We must hail success, such as, for example, that the infant mortality rate is declining. But we also must work hard to do more, sadly, all the way towards assuring basic needs for human beings to preserve at least a shred of their dignity. For me, as a mother and human rights defender, it is unacceptable that according to the World Health Organization, 2 billion people still lack basic sanitation, and 1/3 of them live in the least developed countries. Excellencies, science and technology can provide key solutions across all areas of sustainable development. Technology transfer and sharing of knowledge is the way to go. We must promote local innovations, research, and development. We must listen to specialized agencies to see advancing digital connectivity as one of the targets for empowering LDCs. A recent study emphasized that many people in the world's poorest countries are unable to reap the benefits of life-changing technologies. It shows, for example, that 76% of the population living in the least developed countries is covered by a mobile broadband signal, yet only 25% of them are online. I am confident that in 10 years, at most likely even less, this picture will be dramatically different. But we need to get ready for this now and ask ourselves the day after question. What is next for the LDC's population after everybody is online? We need to make sure that the day after is a success story. I have faith in science and technology, but I always say that science must be closely connected to the ethics. The artificial intelligence, for example, is ethical only as much as the person who develops it. Technological advances and inventions can also slow down, stop, or even reverse social development, especially in vulnerable societies. The use of technology in forms such as ChatGPT is just the beginning of an era in human history that we can't quite imagine yet. As someone said, it's like the invention of the internet browser years ago. It's that sort of a quantum leap. Here, social media offer us an illustrative example. They provide access to information, but they can also mislead and generate hatred and intolerance. This information has ruined many lives and led to many deaths, also in the least developed countries. I cannot imagine sustainable development goals being pursued without close attention to opportunities and threats that social media bring with it. Partnership in the digital era will be important to sustain both economic and political stability around the world. I firmly stand by the Doha Plan of Action and its call for an increase of financing from all sources to support the development of domestic digital, data, and artificial intelligence infrastructure. At the same time, we must establish a political environment that will be vigilant and maintain a critical discourse when reflecting on risk brought by scientific and technological achievements. The European Union does pioneering work in this regard. It adopts legislation that is copied all around the world. But this is not enough. Working with the youth, in particular, will be crucial and very important. Partnership with teachers at all levels of education will be indispensable. Civil society, private sector, NGOs must be involved too. Inclusiveness and transparency are the key to avoiding the misuse of modern technological achievements. Dear Excellencies, I am fully aware that we cannot address challenges and make good use of potentials through partnerships and sustainable development of LCDs if we are not able to deal with current global crisis in a world of deepening inequalities. LDCs must be empowered to deal with global problems. Empowerment is closely connected with the needed reform of the international financial system. It should not further penalize those most disadvantaged with an accumulation of debts and exorbitant interest rates. It will entail the transfer of technology and know-how in critical social areas such as development, public goods, and climate action. In other words, I fully agree that we need to focus on today's priorities related to the perils of underdevelopment and climate change. At the same time, I venture to say that it is the responsibility of us, leaders and opinion makers, to be prepared not only for the present, but also for the future. 20 years ago, I would have probably concluded this address by saying, I know this is a tall order to ask for such action. Today, times are different. We definitely need to act now. The Doha Plan of Action sets ambitious targets and commitments for the forthcoming decade, and most importantly, sends a strong message. We cannot be satisfied with formal commitments. We need to deliver. The developed world must take its fair share of this burden. I'm certain that deliberations at the conference will prove useful in transforming the commitments into action, also by forming new partnerships for the future, and in this way, materialize our joint responsibility to least developed countries, and yes, for the entire humanity. Thank you very much for your attention.
أشكر سعادة رئيس جمهورية